Hello guys, welcome back to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. I am here today with my husband, Coach Shaq. Hello, hubby.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Thank you for coming back. So guys, if you listened to last week's episode, Shaq was here and we were breaking down some training stuff, and then we literally just had to leave the studio because we'd talked for too long and our time was up. It's funny, I can't even remember what we said on there, but we had 8 minutes to go, and I was like, needed to break down 3 leg sessions. And I'm like, this is not happening. Because I actually questioned whether I could do it or not.
I love how you say we talk too much. I think you talk too much.
Thank you. Was that a compliment? Because I'm taking it as one.
I've got 5 words in, I think.
No, so last week, guys, we did the episode where we literally just opened up my training program and like broke down the exercises that are in there and why and what we're working towards and all of those things. But we only got through 2 upper body sessions and then we had to get out of the studio. And then I said to Shaq when we just got here today, I'm like, I actually cannot remember what else we spoke about. So if we double up on a few things, please forgive me, but I feel like we double up anyway and everybody loves it.
Everyone does love a riff.
They do. And guys, full disclosure, I'll just give you a quick little life update. Shaq and I are in the process right now of buying a new house, which, like, I know first world problems, obviously I'm so grateful that we're buying a new house, but you just forget how much
shit there is.
There is so much just paperwork, and you just, like, your brain is just full.
Yeah.
Your brain is just full of so much stuff, and you just get emails from, like, solicitor, real estate, bank, like so many people come at you and like, I need a copy of this, and then we need the rates, and then I need your driver's license, I need another copy of your driver's license, I need your birth certificate, I need this, I need you to sign this, I need you and Shaq to come together to sign this, you need a witness who's over 18, they can't live at your house, they can't be related to you. Like,
so much, eh?
So much all the time. And even, you know, when they're like, print this off and sign it back, and I'm like, who the is still using a printer?
Legit.
And Shaq and I just have this thing where every time we set up our printer, it's just like a fucking nightmare.
Pain in the ass.
Every single time we set up the printer, we're like, how do you work this printer again?
It's like, connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot. Nah, nothing works. Yeah, sweet. Love that.
It's so annoying. So anyway, that's why we're a little bit brain dead and we can't fully remember what we spoke about last week. Last week, we were actually literally sitting here. I think we stopped and took a phone call about the house, hey? And it's funny because I've had my phone on Do Not Disturb for 10 years.
Yeah, can confirm.
Literally, guys, I don't answer to anyone.
Legit, I call her so many times. It's boop, boop. Thanks, babe.
You can't get through. No one's getting through. But I have taken it off Do Not Disturb for the last few weeks because they just call non-stop. Like, you take 20 calls a day about your house. And it's funny, when we got here last week, I said to G, like, no, my phone lives on Do Not Disturb. I was like, but if this phone rings, I don't care where we're at in the episode. We're stopping. I need to answer this. Like, we were waiting on a big call. And so that's been our life.
Yeah. Then you get those odd free days, like, no, something's happening. What's happening? We forgot something here. Like, what's happening?
Or like, people just reach out to you about other things in your life, and you're like, oh, I totally forgot about that. Like, if something comes into your brain that's not to do with the house, you're like, see ya.
Yeah, like, nope.
Nope, forgot all about you. But we're getting there. It's exciting. I feel like when this episode comes out, we'll actually be in the new house.
Yeah.
Because we're quite sort of ahead with episodes. We've got a lot happening in March, aka moving house. But also G's having a holiday, so I'm just trying to be a little bit ahead of my schedule. So we're doing like bulk recordings in Feb. Yeah. So full disclosure, this is recorded in Feb, but it'll come out, I reckon it'll come out right near. We get the keys for the new house on the 7th of March, but Shaq's got the try on the 10th.
Yep. So great day to move. FYI.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to move like fridges and beds and shit and then do a triathlon the next day.
Yeah.
The actual physical moving day is so intense. And I think you know, but you forget how intense. And it's funny because so many of my Eat Like Ruby gals will know, if someone tells me they're moving house, I'm like, okay, the plan is changing, like diet break or we're chilling or whatever. Like, it's very hard to be all in on aggressive nutrition and training protocols when you are moving house.
It's actually pretty funny, like, on how laid back I am. When it's moving day,
dude,
I'm on.
Guys, I feel like I should pimp Shaq out for people moving. Like, when we are moving, Shaq just turns into this beast mode of like, I'll just pick up the fridge in one arm, couch in the other, and just fucking carry it down the street.
I'm determined to move in 1 days.
He actually is. And like, guys, this is a person who like wouldn't even fucking pay his bills on time if it wasn't for me. Like, you don't care about anything. And then when it's moving day, you just flick this switch. And
literally at like 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay, what can we start packing? Let's go.
We're on. And I'm the sort of person, so Shaq's the sort of person that's literally like heaving couches and fridges. And I'll find a box of like jars and I'm like, I'm going to set up the pantry. And Shaq's like fully putting the bed together with all the screws and everything. And I'm like, well, all the cereal's in the jars and all the labels are on the jars.
I think last time we moved
is done.
was like, no, don't put that there, babe. Like, I don't care. Like, they in the house. We'll sort it.
Yeah,
just
so
throw it in the house. Let's go.
Shaq's manual labour and I'm decorator.
Legit.
But it's fun. It's exciting. So anyway, there's a whole life update that no one asked for. But that's where we're at. Yeah. But today we're going to talk more about training.
Yep.
So last week like I said, we literally opened up Trainerize and we just broke down my training in regards to upper body and abs. Yep. And today we're going to do the same thing for legs.
Yep. What's first?
Well, I do 3. So we've spoken about this heaps lately, but I do 3 lower sessions a week at the moment. I can't remember if we spoke about this last week, so forgive me if I'm doubling up. I know we spoke about it in Jan with my sort of plans for the year and my goals and stuff. The 3 sessions, I don't take that lightly. Like, I don't program that a lot for people. Do you know what I mean? Like, we spoke about the fact that we want to make sure energy's good, recovery's good, like you're actually in a position where your body can pull off 3 heavy leg sessions. Yep. Because we've spoken so much about, I think we did speak about this last week, I'm having deja vu, about like if you train them, well, 3 a week is like Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
Very quick turnaround on the recovery and stuff.
Yeah.
So I actually schedule mine, and I'm fully aware that this is quite privileged. A lot of people probably don't have the luxury in their day to do this. But I actually structure mine to be probably, if we think about someone who trains Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you train at like 5 a.m. every day or 5 p.m., whatever, if you train at the same time every day because of your routine, you've basically got a 48-hour turnaround on those legs, right? So I actually structure mine to be like early Sunday, midday Tuesday, Arvo Thursday.
Yep.
Because essentially you get like 52-hour turnaround instead of 48. So if you think about me doing Sunday morning, like, because I like to do early Sunday morning gym because no one's there.
Yeah, true.
Early Sunday in the gym is the shit because no one is there. I would tell you all to do it, but then everyone would fucking be there and it'd be shit. So no one do it. I'll keep doing it myself. But honestly, I love early Sundays in the gym. And if we went early Sunday, let's say like 6 or 7 a.m.
Yep.
If I did 6 or 7 a.m. on Tuesday, 48-hour turnaround. So I just push that back a little bit to like 10 or 11. Yep. It's just a couple of hours, but still counts.
Yeah.
And then again, if we went Thursday at the same time, you get a 48-hour turnaround. But if I push that back to like 2 or 3 in the Arvo, you get those extra couple of hours.
Yeah.
So, and that's even a perfect example of me saying like, I don't program the 3 leg sessions lightly because I'm like literally structuring my whole day around it.
Like a mad scientist.
Legit trying to make it all work. But I do make it work and it's,
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously everyone's different. Some people can smash legs and they're fine. But to me, we've spoken about it so much. I love to really push them to that point, be in the recovery process, sit in it for a while. Like, I don't want to just be smashing them for the sake of it every second day.
Yeah.
You want it to really be beneficial and make sense.
Yeah. So what's your splits?
Yeah, so I think we touched on this. I touched on it with Mum, how I've taken out like the hammies. Did we talk about this last week?
Yeah.
How I've taken out the hammies and the quads?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've basically taken out, yes, we spoke last week about my glutes getting left behind when I was injured.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, guys, I'm not going to tell all that again. So this is definitely like a 2-parter episode and we're in part 2. So if you haven't listened to last week, go back and do so. But basically, long story short, I've trained for a long time and my glutes had a bit of a break when I had an injury. So I just feel like they're a little bit behind the rest of my body.
Yeah.
If I've trained, let's say I've trained for 15 years, but the glutes had a year break in that, they've only trained for 14 years. Yep. They're a year behind the rest of the bod.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. And my hammies and quads are booming.
Yeah.
Like they always have been. They're just big.
Boom city.
Yeah. So I just kind of feel like if I don't scale that back a little bit, they're going to keep growing. And even if the glutes are growing, they're never going to catch up.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I've scaled back any accessory work for hammies and quads and calves. And I'm really just focusing on the main movements for glutes. And then or the main sort of lower body movements being like a push, pull, thrust. And then a little bit of isolated additional glute work as well.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll open up a session, and that'll kind of explain it a little bit better.
Yeah. So what's this, day one?
This is day one.
What are you doing on this day, first off?
All right. So I do this Sunday morning. This is how much thought and stuff I give to my training, because I think, okay, Sunday morning, no one is there. I will use the machines that are hard to get. I'll do the movements that are a bit awkward where, if there's a packed gym, you're like, fuck, I'm not doing that in a packed gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always think about that for Sunday morning. So what's a good thing to do? Single leg press, first of all. I love this. Why are you grinning at me?
I was going to say that. You love this, but I hate this.
I fucking love it. I love single leg press. Did you say you hate it?
I'll say do you love and hate it at the same time?
Oh, no, I just love it.
Okay.
I just love it. So, yeah, I love that at the start of a leg session, because I just feel like, to me, it just gets them going. It just gets my glutes going. I think about, you got to think about really lowering it down. And, I'm such a big believer in the mind-muscle connection, being aware of what you want your body to be doing in a movement.
Yeah.
So, in that single leg press, I'm, just thinking, lengthen through that glute as much as you can.
Yeah.
And then, big push through the heel. I think an area where people go wrong on a single leg press, or probably even a normal leg press, is, a bounce out of the bottom. If you bring it down and then you just, boom, straight back up.
Okay, yeah.
So, I'm very mindful of really controlled on the way down as low as I can. And then just thinking about, am I really lengthening through that glute of the foot that's on the plate? And then not initiating the push up with momentum, but just easing into that push up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you sort of drop it down without control and then just sort of reef it up, we've spoken about momentum a little bit before in the podcast, but you lose the actual, you lose a lot of work from the muscle that's actually supposed to be doing it. It just becomes more get my whole body behind this to just fucking heave it up.
Yeah, and that muscle connection with your mind too. I feel like when you
so
heave
underrated.
It around, injuries come more into play. Especially that bottom move, if you're bouncing and stuff. If you're bouncing for everything you got, it's okay, back stuff now, leg stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it just defeats the purpose. Are you training to just fucking throw weight up and down with your whole body just jerking it around?
Yeah.
Or are you trying to tap into certain muscles?
Is there a point to this?
We did the toning episode a few weeks ago where I talked about I want to build, and how we tone is to build certain body parts. So you want to actually nail the technique and the movements on these to really work that body part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my thing is too.
Guys, can you see why I couldn't do this in 8 minutes? Because we're on one exercise. Anyway, what were you going to say?
So I think if you're doing something, do it with a point and do it with a purpose. Do it correctly. You know what I mean?
Do it right or don't do it at all.
Yeah, pretty much. Legit.
Have you got a quote for us? Because you actually didn't do a quote last week.
Oh.
If you cannot think about the quote, there's been a quote that Jack's been saying 7 million times a day. If this hasn't already come to your mind.
Oh, there's been a couple of them saying, win the morning, win the day.
That's the one.
There we
All
go.
day, every day, Shaq is just to me, Rubes, win the morning, win the day. And I'm like, Shaq, it's 8:30 at night. The day is done.
I've been saying that a lot.
Do you say it when you're running? You say it with your run crew, hey?
Yeah, I think they hate me for it, to be honest.
She's 12Ks in, and Shaq's like, guys, win the morning, win the day.
I say it first, and everyone laughs, but probably about the fifth one in, everyone's like,
Yeah, guys, that is Shaq to a T. If you're in Shaq's run club, I fully can relate to you. So if Shaq says something funny and gets even the most minute response, he's like, oh my God, this is a winner. I will say this 7 million times in the next week.
I'm a dog with a bone. I will not let it go.
Nah, if you give him even just a cheeky grin, he's like, oh fuck, she thought that was hilarious. I will just put that one on repeat for the rest of the week. So I can imagine the run club are just sweaty and exhausted, and you're just dropping the same quote you've dropped 18 times.
Yeah. Even if I'm out of breath, I'll still say it.
Okay, anyway, should we move on to exercise number 2?
2. So, yeah, let's go.
So we start with the single leg press. I've got, we're still on exercise 1, guys. 10 to 12 reps, RPE 7. I'm a huge fan of the RPE 7. We spoke about RPE last week.
Yeah.
Did we?
We touched on it, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of most first movements being an RPE 7.
Yeah.
Which is like warm up the muscle, get things moving, whatever. Sometimes I'll make them an 8, but to me, I don't love like an RPE 10 first movement. Like you want to get shit moving first. To me, the second movement is more the big dog of the session.
Yeah, because that first, what we said before, like that first exercise, simply that activation,
Yeah.
like everything working, the mind
Yeah,
connection.
we did speak about this last week because we were talking about activating the back before the chin-ups.
Yeah, so it's pretty much just getting that mind connection, like make sure everything's working.
Yeah, because if you think about that, like say single leg press, if that was like RPE 10, so you're in the gym, like literally the very first thing you do is push to a fucking 10 out of 10.
You're
like
cooked.
To me, that's not smart.
Yeah.
You're just not ready, like mentally, physically, your body's like, what the fuck, 10 out of 10? Like that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's just, I just like to have that first one be a bit more like get ready for
everything else.
The sesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So second exercise, trap bar RDL.
Yeah, sweet. So that's straight away from a push to a pull pretty much from RDL, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm a huge fan of the trap. I'm a huge fan of the trap bar over a barbell. I could not tell you the last time I did a barbell RDL.
Yeah, because same thing, like same movement but different is deadlift. I love the trap bar. I think it's just more safer and like
I just feel so much safer. Hey.
Yeah, I feel like.
And like I've had a lot of injuries through that, like glute, hip, lower back, whatever. And it's good now, but when you've had injuries, you're so mindful of like, fuck, if something feels safer than something else, I'm doing the safe thing. I'm not going back down that injury route.
Yeah, because I feel like too, like so many people are portioned like either long legs or long arms. So I feel like when you raise those handles up or raise the weights up, it takes the pressure off your lower back, something chronic.
Yeah, and guys, I just want to preface by saying like if you're someone who's barbell deadlifting or RDLing and it feels great and you're killing it, like fucking go off.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Like I'm not shaming that at all. I'm just saying for me personally, trap bar feels so much better. I've had a lot of girls in it like Ruby that say trap bar feels a lot better. Yeah. It can be hard because it can be a little bit awkward to set up, and like not every gym has them. I think because we train at such a like loaded gym, we forget that some gyms don't have stuff.
Yeah, don't have them. Yeah,
like our gym has everything.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like, it is cool. Yeah. But that is essentially like the main lift. I've actually got it in right now as 10 to 12 lighter weight technique reps is what I've written here. Just because I feel like it's one thing where I do load that and I progress a lot with it, and then you do start to kind of lose the technique a little and you maybe do trigger lower back or something a little and then you need to scale back. Yep. So this right now is the scale back time for my trap bar RDL. After that, and for me personally, if we look at the next exercise, so I've got cluster hip thrusts as the next exercise, which are the big dog, the heavy lift. And that is 3 exercises in. So normally I'd have that big dog, like I said, as the second. Like the main heavy thing is the second one. The reason I've got the RDL first, this is just for me personally. I hip thrust very well, very safely. Like there's no issues there at all, touch wood. With the trap bar deadlift, like I've had, or the RDL, I've had a lot of, like I said, injuries and things over the years where that is a movement that I'm very mindful to be careful with. Yeah. As opposed to the hip thrust is something where I'm like, I'm pretty good here. Like I can fucking go for it on this, right? So for me, I like to get that trap bar in quite early and make sure I'm not too fatigued when I do it. Like I don't want to be cooked on an exercise that I already feel a little like iffy on. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I've got that in there. But so like I said, cluster hip thrust. Should we talk about the cluster? I don't think we've ever talked about this on the podcast. So a cluster, I'll read it out. I've got 3 sets of 4-4 in brackets, 4 reps, 10-second break, 4 more reps equals 1 set. So that's exactly what a cluster is. If we had a set of 8 or 12, for example, you might do like 3 or 4, 10-second rest, 3 or 4, 10-second rest until you've done your 8 or 12. But you do them in those little clusters with just literally like a 10-second rest. I take 3 breaths. I'm just like, I do that like 3 times. Yep. And then I go again. And then when you get to the end of the cluster, like the little 3s and 4s, then you actually stop and have your big proper like 2 or 3 minute rest or whatever. Yeah. And that's your 1 set.
honestly so underrated. Like it's
so underrated. And it's hard because it's hard to program this for people too early on because it's just confusing.
Yeah.
Like I never would put a cluster in those first few programs for people because they're still trying to get their head around so many things. And then they're like, what the fuck is a cluster? Like I'm so mindful to not give unnecessary information too early on when you're still trying to learn so many other things. So it's something that we tend to do a little further into training. But it's so beneficial. Like I'll let you get a word in. What do you think like benefits of the cluster?
It's so good. Like, so what I've been pointing on recently is simply because if you're doing, say, the 8 reps in the hole, for lifting that same amount of weight, you're probably going to waver from that weight. You have to find yourself reducing weight over time.
Or technique goes to shit
so
if you stick with it.
Those two factors, if you find that cluster, you can do the same amount of weight with a better form, better range of motion. It's just going to give you benefits long term. Like
the way I see it is like almost just like a mini reset in the middle of the set.
Yeah.
Like if we think about a cluster, like the 8 reps being split into 4, 10-second rest, and then the other 4. If you, like Shaq said, if you're going for a heavy weight, most like you can do 4 a lot easier than you can do 8. First of all, like that's just a fucking fact.
Legit.
So if you do 4 and technique's pretty good, your position's good, like you said, range of motion's good, everything. If you kept going like into the 5th, 6th, 7th, at some point those things start to drop a little bit.
Yeah.
And we can all relate to that. That's no shame. Like you're getting fatigued.
Yeah.
Like you're starting to fail on the weight, which is awesome in a way because you're obviously lifting a fucking heavy weight.
Yeah.
But if we think about everything we know about training, like we don't want technique and range of motion and all of that to go to shit. And it almost comes back to what we said on that first exercise where you start to literally just think about getting it up any way you can.
Yeah.
You're just like throwing this weight up and down to try and hit your 8 reps. If you do 4 and then have a 10-second rest, you literally just get to intercept that and stop, catch your breath. Maybe you need to move your feet. Maybe you need to move your shoulder blades, whatever. Like if you've started to get a little bit skew-if and then you go for your other 4, you just avoid hitting those sloppy reps, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it's the more volume you can get in for the weight you're doing, it's just going to help you if you're doing like the 1RMs and stuff like that. Like when you hit that time where you're doing heavier weight, it's just going to be way more beneficial for you.
Yeah. I think just having that little breather to make sure you don't lose the point of the exercise, really.
Yeah, and it's a big thing for that muscle connection, like mind muscle. Like, if you're doing too much, you're going to get bored with it type thing. If you're probably not getting bored. I think
you're not getting bored. The fatigue is kicking in. So if you think about the first few reps of an exercise, like the hip thrust that we've got here, you're like, okay, are my glutes firing? Are my feet in the right position? Are my shoulder blades good? All of the things, like you're really mindful. Like you said, mind-muscle connection's there, range of motion's there, technique is there. As you keep going through those reps, fatigue is naturally going to kick in and it becomes less about those things and more about like getting it done.
Yeah.
So the cluster is the intercept on falling into that mentality. Yeah. Love it. So that's my main heavy lift in that movement. So then straight away we can see there, like you said, we got the push, then we got the pull, and then we got the thrust/bridge movement. So they're the 3 things I pretty much always factor into a lower body session for myself, for clients, for everyone, unless we're having like a one-off program where we're maybe going to work on something else for a little while. But as a whole, like if I'm writing a leg session, I'm thinking push, pull, thrust/bridge. And then usually I would be like, okay, maybe, because those 3 things, we've spoken about this a bit before, but those 3 things are like our 3 main movements on the glutes. So like we've just hit them in 3 different ways there, which is awesome. But then when we think about like a leg press, you're still going to work quad as well, even a little bit of assistance from hammies. RDL, obviously huge hammy assistance with the glutes. Hip thrust is predominantly glutes, but you're still working everything else a little bit. But you're still really hitting the glutes in all the ways that we want to. And then usually, like I was saying, we would then start to factor in like a hammy curl or a leg extension, things like that, to hit them a little bit more. That's intentionally what I'm not doing right now. So then we're going into kneeling glute abductions on the cable. So basically you're like on all 4s, you've got the little ankle cuff around the ankle, and we're like pulling the leg away. It's quite hard to explain on a podcast, but my Eat Like Ruby girls will know. And that's like our 4th way of hitting the glutes as well. When we think about the glutes, like we know they work through like lateral abduction, like taking the leg away from the body is a role of the glutes, especially like that glute med, aka the shelf that everybody talks about. We want to be able to load laterally, like I said, which basically just means out to the side, which is where our cables come in hugely.
Yeah.
So I just like to mix up the variations. You'll see as we go through them, there's a few more. So I've got 10 to 15 on each side. Those are one thing that I really like to be mindful of, that mind-muscle connection. So I don't want to put a specific number on it. Like if I'm in the zone, they're feeling good, whatever, and I want to push to the 15, I will. If I'm like,
not really feeling it.
If I'm struggling, whatever, I'm like, don't force 15 shit reps. Like stick with 10 good ones kind of thing. And then after that, I've got seated hip abduction machine. So that's like, everyone knows the one where you're like literally just don't want to make eye contact with people because you're just fucking spreading your legs over and over.
Not the best one to do.
Everyone knows the thing. But this is a perfect example of, like I said, normally I wouldn't hit, that's 2 abduction movements in a row after 3 big glute exercises. Like this is a heavy glute focused program, but that's the point. So normally I might have one of them and then like a hammy curl. So I've fucked that off. I've bought in the extra glute isolated abduction work for this exact reason. Yeah. So any questions on that sesh?
No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty good. Like way it's programmed, you got 3 mains and then you come into the accessory work, which is... Yeah.
And guys, obviously, I mean, I've got warm up at the start of these. I don't really talk about it because it just is what it is. But literally in every Eat Like Ruby program, we have cardio warm up, and then this one has lower body warm up. The other day has upper body warm up. Funny about that. So we don't need to talk through that. That's a no-brainer. Session number 2. Loading. Elevated glute abductions cable. She's starting with the abductions.
Yep.
Spicy. I don't remember writing that, but go me. I don't normally start with them.
You're like, shit.
I had a reason for that, obviously. So elevated glute abductions is literally one foot is on like a step or even a weight plate you can use. The ankle cuff is on the other one, and it's basically like a kickback if we think about it. Yeah, I feel like there's so much to say about this, but it's hard to say on a podcast, but I should do like a reel or something about it because the technique of this is like make or break.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing this and you're just like swinging that leg up and down,
no point.
It's not doing what you want it to be doing. The thing we really want to do here is get the body in a position where it then stays still. The leg moves on its own and the leg hits like a point of resistance. You don't want to be able to swing your leg up and down. I'm going to have to make content about this when this podcast comes out or people won't understand it, but you don't want to just be swinging up and down. You want to like have the body in that position where you essentially like,
Yeah.
Guys, I'm doing visuals, not just making weird noises. But you're like kicking the leg and it basically hits that stop point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you can see it. You can see the difference. That's why I think like a reel would be cool because there's a very big difference between just like, shoo, swinging up and down. Like my leg is just literally flying back and forth versus like I'm abducting it, but it hits the resistance point.
So I hit that point of resistance. So
and that is literally exactly what we want.
Yeah.
Like if there's no point of resistance, there's no point resistance training.
Legit.
Funny that. So that's something that, I hope we made sense of that on the pod. Something to think about. And if you're an Eat Like Ruby, film them and show me and I'll tell you. Next one is step down body weight. Yeah, so this session's a little bit different. There's no big heavy lift in this one. It's a little bit more higher rep, like higher volume.
Yeah, okay.
So after those, I think I just said step down body weight. So those for me are a massive technique thing, especially on the right side. Like my left side could do these for days. My right side, which is where I had injuries a while ago, there's such a clear... I mean, it's clear to me because I'm educated. Most people would probably be like, they're fine. But I can see it clear as day. Such a clear hip shift when the weight is on the right foot in a unilateral push exercise. And what I mean by that is unilateral push means like one-legged push. So split squat, lunge, Bulgarian, anything like that. When I drop down into something like that, and then obviously we're thinking like lengthen the glute, push the hips back, push through the heel to work that glute to come up. It's not even 1 centimeter, but I know it's there. If the strength isn't there to go straight up from that, you're going to like flick out to the side. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see what I mean. But if we think about my hands right now, my hands are just straight out in front of me, like shoulder width apart. If those are the hips, when we like drop down into a movement, if we do not have the strength, if we think about right foot being in front, if we do not have the strength in that right leg and the right glute in particular to push straight out of that, something's going to want to assist it and compensate it.
Yeah.
And that is where the body goes, no. Essentially, the body says, no, I can't do this movement like this. I need to do it like this.
Yeah.
And you flick out to the side. And that's so important to clock. If you're someone who's doing single leg push movements like lunges, split squats, etc., watch yourself straight on in the mirror and make sure when you're in the depth of it and you're about to push up, do your hips remain what's the word I'm looking for? Square. Yes, thank you. And like parallel, and you literally drop down with the hips square and they stay exactly there and you push up. If you go to push up and you notice that things just go like out to the side, it is literally the smallest movement, but that is the glutes saying, I can't do this on my own.
Yeah. One of the analogies I like to use for that one is simply think your hips as like a bucket of water.
Yeah.
So if obviously you're flat, nothing's tipping over. Little pelvic tilt, the water's coming out.
The water's out.
Yeah.
You've lost it. You're spilling all over the gym.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got step down body weight. There's no weight, there's no nothing. I know that right glute needs work in that movement.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's why I have the single leg press in there as well, because it's not as... If we think about this, I might lose people here, but I'll try and explain it as best I can. If we think about doing like a lunge or something, especially weighted, you're coming down on that with your body weight and then the additional weight you've got on your hands. So if your glute isn't strong enough to move your body weight and then some, it's not going to be able to, right?
Yeah.
If we go to a single leg press with 5 kilos each side, your glute's now trying to lift 30 instead of 70.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why I love the single leg press for me right now, because I don't have to lift my whole body weight.
Yeah.
If we think about a Bulgarian or a lunge or something, your whole body is behind that.
Yeah.
So when you put that work on that one foot and push out of it, that foot and that side and that glute has to be strong enough.
Yeah.
Whereas if we go to a single leg press, I don't have to push 60 or 70 kilos. I can push 20 or 30.
Yeah.
Make sense? So anyway, again, we could not have done this in 8 minutes because it's been 34. So those two are almost like kind of warm up, get the glutes going, get technique right, kind of things. Then we go into RDL, dumbbell.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about them.
Yeah, it's pretty much, we said it before, so yeah.
I like the dumbbell over the barbell because you can have a bit more flexibility of the positioning with like shoulders, hands, all those things. If you think about barbell, that's even why the trap bar is so good as well, because I just way prefer that position where the arms are out to the side instead of in front.
Yeah.
Especially because I have short arms, and my mum will be laughing because she'll listen to this, and it was always a thing for me as a kid, like my sleeves were longer than like they should have been. Like my arms are too short for the rest of my body, I swear.
Yeah, okay.
And mum was always like, everything fits you, but then your sleeves are like massive and just got these little tiny arms. But if we think about that, if you're trying to reach a bar in front of you and your arms are short, and like you said before, like even tall people can have this issue because their legs and their torso and everything is so long.
Yeah.
So you've got such a long way down to the bar, and you have to be able to tuck your pelvis and like hold everything in the hips and the back and the core and everything in the right position and still be able to reach that bar.
Yeah.
And most, like not most, but for some people, a lot of people, when you reach far enough to actually grab it, you can lose some of that positioning with hips and back and everything. When we take the arms out to the side instead, like you said, first of all, they're normally a bit higher.
Yep.
But having them out to the side just means that you're not trying to like essentially reach over yourself to try and get it.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of butchered that, but it makes a lot of sense, and I reckon a lot of people can relate. If you do feel more comfortable on the trap bar, think about when you're trying to pick up a barbell in front of you, it's a little bit like, fuck, I actually just can't hold everything in the right position when I fully reach for this bar. Yeah,
because I feel like the trap bar, I feel like you're so more used to it, like picking up grocery bags, suitcase lifts, like you're so like, your mind's very used to it.
Like it's a natural movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I feel like
true.
that way, yeah.
Yeah. And that, like, coming back to the dumbbells, it's just that same sort of thing where you can just maneuver them a little bit more. Like, you're not going to swing them out to the sides like a dickhead, but you don't just have to hold them like dead straight in front. On. You can even just have that a little bit of a like pivot. Lean,
yeah.
Yeah. So I think it just provides like you can just find a bit more comfort.
Yep.
In it, yeah. So got them, which is I've got add band lighter weight technique reps. So adding the band, I love this in Eat Like Ruby. We do the hip hinge for a lot of girls in the first program in Eat Like Ruby, and it's just like learning to create the resistance in the right hips. Way through the hammies. Yeah, like position the hips in the right way to load the hammies.
Yeah, because I feel like some people always go either too far or just don't feel them at all. Like
I feel like people, like when we hinge, so we've probably lost people here, but a hinge is a deadlift or RDL, like that sort of movement where we're hinging at the hips essentially. People can often just kind of hinge forward with the upper body and the lower body doesn't move much.
Yep.
And we want the hips and the bum to shoot back to create the tension in the hammies to actually then work the hammies and the glutes when we stand up from that movement. So if you haven't pushed any of that back and you don't create any of that tension, you're essentially just like, it's almost like a drinking bird where you're just like flopping up and down with the top half, but the legs and the lower body aren't doing a thing.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that you like actually, as you lower the upper body, the hips and the bum go back. Yeah. And the band around the hips can just create that, like help you create that movement more. Because then you stand up into it and you feel that resistance.
What's next?
B stance, hip thrust, dumbbell.
Okay. What do you do B stance for?
Okay. Just to be able to work into both sides.
Yep.
Because obviously, I think we've spoken about this before, like you usually have one side that's a bit stronger than the other.
Yep.
So a B stance, if people don't know, a B stance is like single leg, but you get a little bit of assistance from the other leg. So you're not just fully on one. I feel like I said that really weird. But essentially, if we're doing B stance, we do one side at a time. But if we're doing all the weight on the right leg, if we're doing the set on the right leg, the left leg is holding a little bit of the weight. It's not completely removed.
Yeah, so it's like...
I normally say 70-30.
Yeah, 70-30, yeah.
So like 70% of the work would happen in the right leg in this situation.
Yeah.
And then the left leg is kind of holding like 30% of you.
Yep.
And just really helping with like balance. I think when we look at like B stance RDLs and things like that, you know, I remember for a while like the single leg RDL became a big thing. Very few people are getting the benefit of a single leg RDL because most people are just trying to fucking balance.
Yep.
Think about a single leg RDL.
It's hard.
You can't load it. Like, I shouldn't say you can't, but most people can't load it enough to actually get the benefit because they're still trying to get balance.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you lose the point. So when we bring in the B stance, you remove things like the balance being an issue so you can actually load it and do the right technique.
Yeah.
So I hope we haven't lost the listeners there, but B stance, hip thrust, dumbbell. So essentially you're in that hip thrust position. You've got 70% of the weight on the right foot. The left foot is there just kind of perched up on the heel, just providing a bit of stability, a bit of balance. And then you've got the dumbbell on the lap and you're hip thrusting with most of your weight in the heel of the right foot to work that right glute.
Yeah.
And then you do your full set on that side. So I've got 8 to 12 and then over to the other side.
Yep.
Yeah. So I like that. If we think about like in the previous session, we had the cluster hip thrust, big, heavy hip thrust.
Yep.
This one brings it back. Obviously, I'm not going to put a 100 kilo dumbbell on my lap. So you just kind of scale the weight back, a little bit higher rep, more focus on technique. Like you said, mind muscle connection, actually working into the individual glute. If we only were to just load heavy hip thrusts 2 or 3 times a week and not work on like a B stance or a single leg or anything, if you do have that one side that's stronger and that one side that lags, that's always going to be the case.
Yep.
Because you're never going to like work on that lagging side. If you've got a strong side and you put 100 kilos or more on your lap, the strong side's like, let's fucking go, I've got it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So then that weak side is never really going to get the work that it needs to try and catch up.
Yeah, I feel like we're always going to have imperfections in left and right
like
side.
imbalance.
Yeah, so I think we just got to find that to train both sides and like individually. I think, I'm a big believer in it.
Yeah, got the tick of approval from the big dog. And then finish that with a Kaz hip thrust, 4 sets, 12 to 15 reps.
Nice.
Kaz hip thrust. So if people don't know, that's almost like I feel like it's the same as constant tension.
Pretty much,
It's not half rep, but it's not like a full big thrust up, bring it right down to the floor, go again. It's more of like get it up and then you kind of like thrust.
Yeah, so keep it that
like
tension.
Keeping the tension so you don't like reset and sort of go again between every rep.
Yeah.
Like when it's up, you kind of pump them out. But you got to be mindful of not rushing and still technique and all of the things that we always talk about. But I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
And I've kind of got them in there as almost like a finisher. Because if we think about going through that session, like elevated glute abductions, trying to tap into each individual side of that glute med, the step down, like I said, is a big thing for me to focus on the technique and try and get that hip shift to fuck off, essentially. RDL dumbbell, like we said, it's a good one, but you're not loading it like you would a barbell. So it's a bit more like technique, range, movement, all of the things. B stance, hip thrust, work into those individual glutes, and then finish them off with the calves.
Yep.
Just pump until they can't pump no more.
Good.
Yep. That's the sesh.
Yep.
On to the last.
Last one.
Okay, last sesh. Split squat, front foot elevated.
Yep. Okay, straight into it.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Like I was saying before, I'm a very big fan of the unilateral movements.
I know.
You just can't beat them.
You can't. Hey, no.
Especially like if you got obviously training goals and more, but also performance and even like running and shit. You can't beat them.
Don't hijack my podcast to talk about your run club.
Guys, it's no longer the Eat Like Ruby. This is the Talk Like Shaq club. So let's
Talk
go,
like
guys.
Shaq.
Yeah.
You fucking say like 2 sentences.
I try to say more, but I keep getting cut off.
No, so front foot elevated split squat. So we put the front foot up on a step, or I just put it on a weight plate, like a 20 or a 25 because they're thick.
You don't have to go too high with it.
Yeah. And then really it's just like that. It just helps you create a bit more depth. It's really similar to what we were saying with the single leg press. Like you're trying to essentially drop down and really lengthen through that glute that's loaded, which in this case is the one at the front. If you have that front foot on the step, the other leg goes back behind you, you drop right down into it, you really try and lengthen through that glute, so hip back. And then this is where that hip shift comes in. Like if you've got the strength to then give a big push through that heel and push through that glute and push straight up, that's exactly what we want. Yeah. And I feel like this is one of those things where like if you're doing it right, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm so aware of it myself. And most of the time I get it right. And then I'll have some days where I'm like, oh, it's a bit weak today. And that to me, that's just a sign to keep working on that like step down and that individual movement and stuff. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this when I get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do those first to warm up each side, 10 to 12 reps, RPE 7. And then I go into my 5-5-5 hip thrust. Do you know what these are?
Is that like the half full?
You're kind of there.
Talk us through it.
So we got 5 pause reps. So we're up and we
Pausing.
pause for a sec at the top. We come back down. 5 dead stop. So we come right up. We bring it right down, like almost reset.
Yeah, okay.
Between every rep. And then we got 5 CAS reps. And that's like create till 15 reps, which is one set. So you go like 5 reps where you pause at the top of each one, straight into 5 dead stops, straight into 5 CAS.
Yeah.
And then you have your full rest and then you go again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just loved them all along. I actually got these from Denver years ago, like probably 4 or 5 years ago. Shout out Denver Stain. He was my coach for a long time and he programmed them for me once and I was just like, fuck, those are great.
Just feel them straight away.
Yeah. Just a good one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have a lot to say about that.
No.
I go quite heavy, like heavy-ish. Probably not as heavy as the cluster.
Because same thing, you want to feel that connection with the muscle.
And you got to look like 15 reps versus a cluster being 8.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 4. So naturally,
you're going
I'm going to go as heavy.
Yeah.
Prone glute abductions. So this is super similar to like our standing glute abductions, but we're just on the bench. So if you put an incline bench in front of the cables, again, probably something I should make a reel about. If you put it like an incline bench with the back up in front of the cables, you put your knee on the little seat bit and then you can sort of rest your hands on. So how do I explain it? If you were sitting on that bench, your back would be to the cable.
Yep.
But you kind of want to face it the other way.
Yeah.
So you put your knee on the little seat, you hold on to the backrest, you then put the cable attachment on your other leg, and then you're doing your abductions on that leg. So like I said, it's exactly the same as like your standing abductions, but the leg that's standing is now resting on a bench. The reason for this, and this could be really helpful for some people, is sometimes people can feel the standing ones in the standing leg more. Like if you're grounded on your right leg and you've got the cable on the left and you're doing your abductions on the left, a lot of people get like a burn in that right leg, which is actually part of it. Like that can be really helpful. But for some people, it's so much that the leg that's doing the reps becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
And they're like, just fucking like my standing leg is on fire.
Yeah.
So if we do them on the bench like this, you remove that and the work solely goes into that abducting leg.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back extension for glutes.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm not a fan.
Not a fan.
I'm a fan of them in theory. Like I program them for people and I believe in their effectiveness, but personally when I'm training, I'm not a fan. It's
a very hard thing to get correct.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. It really is. That was going to be my next sentence.
Because like I feel like either doing it with a band or weights. Like I feel like you have to have.
I love the band, but it's awkward.
Yeah,
like a band around your neck is like.
Or even around your shoulders, because I feel like that affects your around your back to get your glutes involved. I feel like there's a lot of things in play there, which I feel like it's very hard to get right. When you get it right, it's
yeah,
great.
And that's what I was going to say. Like when you train people, like I've trained people in person for years before, like being online. And even now when I see technique videos, when you see someone getting it right, you're like, fuck, that's just so smooth and you've nailed it.
Yeah.
Like there's literally no issue with that. It's like any other exercise. But then like so many people can get it wrong. I feel like I struggle to really find that sweet spot. Like, yeah. So if you're someone who feels that way, you're not alone. And it really is one of those things where people could send me a video, like 2 people could send me a video and they've both like similar physique, similar training history. I've taught them the same things, whatever. Someone sends it and it's like, they look beautiful. Like you're just a fucking natural at that movement. And the other person sends it and it's like, there's just something not right. And it can even be hard as a coach to find the thing that's not right. Hey,
because you know it's not right, but it's like, what do you actually point there?
Like, what is it? Yeah. There's so many little things. So I don't have a lot of advice on that one.
Yeah,
you do when you're with someone. If you're with someone, you're like manually like adjusting.
If you're there
them.
touching in person, like it's way better rather than looking for a video. That's
and it can be a hard one to film. Like so often my girls will send them and I'm like, oh, like I can't see your feet. I'd love to know like what position your feet are in, or like there's always something that you can't see. But yeah, I'm working on them. And then I'm finishing that session with the seated hip abductions machine again.
Yep.
So we had them in the other day as well. But again, this is just a perfect example of a sesh. We've got the push with the split squat.
Yep.
We've got the thrust movement with the 5-5-5 hip thrust. We've got back extension for glutes, which is a great, we should touch on that really quickly. That's a great thing to put in place of a pulling movement. Because if you think about the fact that we do want to pull in most sessions.
Yeah.
Deadlifting 3 times a week. Whew.
It's
gnarly.
Yeah.
That's gnarly.
It's a lot.
That's a lot on your like spine, back, nervous system, mentality. Like it's just a big movement.
Yeah.
So to do that a few times a week is a lot. So I like to try and break it down and have like a heavy dead, but then maybe like a B stance RDL or a dumbbell RDL, something like that. And then try and work the back extension in other times as well. Because if we think about loading up a heavy dead versus jumping on a back extension, like you jump on your back extension, you do your 15 reps, you have a minute break, you do 15 more, like you fuck off. It doesn't take a lot. If you open your program and it's like heavy deads 4 sets,
you're like,
shit, right, load the bar, get the right position, big 2 or 3 minute rest between them all. Like it's just a big thing. So I'm always mindful of like, we don't really want to put that in 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And like the physical demand of that is huge.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So coming back to my point, breaking down that session, push, thrust, pull, and then I got the 2 abductions again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the set out for all 3.
Thank you. Thank you, boss. Any questions, anything before we wrap it up?
One question for you. You might have asked this before. I can't remember. What do you feel is more beneficial for glutes? Is RDL or hip thrust?
You and I have literally spoken about this.
We have,
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Scratch that.
No, but we can talk about it. I don't think one is better than the other because I think it would come down to the individual.
Yeah.
And I think we need both.
Yeah.
I think people think it's the hip thrust. This is what you and I spoke about.
Yeah, it's more...
People are like... Because what we spoke about was the difference between sensation versus stimulation.
That's it.
So people thinking like, oh, on every hip thrust, I squeeze my glutes, so therefore I feel it more, so therefore the hip thrust is better.
Yep.
Whereas when we look at an RDL, no one's really squeezing glutes. And when we think about the working part of the RDL, the work happens in the lengthening.
Yep.
Like when you lower that bar and you lengthen through that glute. So you're not squeezing it. It's fucking lengthened.
Yeah.
It's actually impossible. So I think a lot of people can draw that conclusion because of that squeeze and the stimulus and everything they feel in a hip thrust. They're like, oh my God, I feel this so much. It's so beneficial. This is where I'm going to grow my glutes. But you can't like ignore the benefit of a lengthened exercise like an RDL.
Yeah.
Like that's so beneficial. And it's so off topic. Like I'd probably just go in so many directions, but this even is one thing tying in with what we just said about the RDL and the deadlift being very taxing. When we think about a lengthened movement like that, the muscles work through a bigger range. There's a bigger recovery there. If you think about a hip thrust, right? Hip thrusts can be heavy, they can be hard, you can feel them a lot, whatever. You might have like tender glutes the next day. You're not fucked.
Yeah.
Right? And I was going to say, sorry for the language, but we're an hour in. So, but in all seriousness, like if you do big, heavy deads, you're pretty fucking cooked the next day.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe the day after, like when you're really maxing out deads, like I said, you don't want to do that 2 or 3 times a week. I don't think you could.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it for long. Like you couldn't keep that up. If you think about a hip thrust, you can tolerate hip thrusts a lot better.
Yeah.
Like you do heavy hip thrusts, whether they're heavy, cluster, CAS, constant tension, all of the things. Like I said, you might have tender, like you'll feel them at the time and you might have tender glutes the next day. That goes away quite quickly because they haven't been through that big lengthening process.
Yeah.
So when we're doing that shortened exercise, the turnaround can be a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just something like interesting to clock. And like your original question of what's better, I don't think one is better. I think we need the combo of both.
To grow, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
So those are my lower sessions. So like I said in recent weeks, these are obviously super personalized to me and where I'm at and my goals and my gaining phase and all of the things. So take from that what you will. But obviously we are getting very close to the gaining phase in Eat Like Ruby starting soon, which is just so exciting. You can see the big grin on my face because I'm just excited. I'm excited for the gaining phase.
Yeah.
Like the type of girls that come in are awesome. The convo is awesome. It just hits different.
Raises that bar a little bit.
It does. It actually does raise the bar a little bit as well. And you're just talking about different things. You know, we talk about like the body needing a break from fat loss in winter. I think the brain needs a break from fat loss. I think Ruby's brain needs a break from fat loss. We talk about it so much and obviously it's awesome. And I feel like that actually is like, I'm not even trying to be funny because that actually just does back up the point. You think about the fact that we ran the fat loss phase all through the back end of last year, non-stop talk about fat loss, scale weight, all the things. Everyone's pumped. Everyone's excited. Like it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
We come into the new year, we do the same thing. You do naturally start to hit a point where you're like, okay,
I'm ready.
We need a breather.
Yeah.
The body is the same. The metabolism is the same. The mindset is the same. Like what was exciting and was like, you know, we're all keen to get after it. Eventually that starts to take its toll.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the gaining phase is so beneficial. I could talk about gaining phases all day because we know the physical benefits are awesome for building the physique, but just the shift in the mindset, you can't describe it until you've experienced it.
Yeah.
If you have a goal to really get after it in the gym or build your physique, I dare you to do a gaining phase.
Yeah.
I dare you to do a gaining phase. I dare you to apply for the Eat Like Ruby gaining phase. But I just think you just learn so much. I think Mum said it on her episode. You learn so much about yourself and your body and your mindset and your process and just, yeah, you
so
really,
cool.
For so many people, nutrition and training has always been fat loss.
Yeah.
That end. I diet for weight loss. I'm eating good for fat loss. I'm going to the gym for weight loss. Like, if that has just been your mentality forever, when you shift that, game changer.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm excited for it.
You know what I find too with those group things? It's just obviously raises the bar. And when you're in a group with people doing the same shit, it makes you perform better.
Oh.
It ups your game like...
100.
Could even say before, like the running group I'm in, I probably wasn't doing that fast.
Shaq just low-key plugging his run club once again.
Nah, so I feel like when you're around people who are pushing themselves, you find yourself, without even knowing, going that harder. Like, it's crazy, like...
100%.
And honestly, if you haven't tried a group thing, like the gaining phase and stuff, have a crack. You'll see the benefits of it, and you will... I guarantee you won't go back.
Yeah, it's just cool to just put yourself in a room with people that are doing the same thing and having the convos that you want to have. And it's like awesome. And the gaining phase combos, they just hit different. No one in a gaining phase is like, I don't feel like it today. I'm not motivated this week.
Legit.
Like when you're in a gaining phase, you fucking want to be there. You don't enter a gaining phase if you don't want to be there. So the frequency, the energy, the combos, they're just up a notch.
Yeah.
And it's like the energy is very much just like, I'm here because I want to be.
Yeah.
I'm fucking going for it.
And just like, it sparks that competition too. Like, if you feel like you don't want to do it that day, you don't say it like, but like, oh, everyone else is fucking doing it. Let's go. Fuck. I mean, that's, so enjoyable doing that group stuff.
Yeah. So the Lac River gaining phase is open for application. It could actually be full by the time this comes out, but we'll see. If not, we've got the link everywhere. You guys know the things, but we will be back. Probably I will just be back next week. But thank you so much for coming in, Shaxon.
No worries. I think I got 10 words in today, guys, so we're improving.
Get over it. You got heaps in. This joke, see what I mean, guys? Finds a joke, runs with it. It's old.
Guys, let me know if I'm funny or not.
We're over it. We're over it and we're going now. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.